7:59. Okay.
Call the meeting to order. We all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ron, did you call it?
Oh man, I can hear everyone. My audio's on, even video was on, but no one was responding when I was saying hello. And
his voice was down.
Okay, so try it again. See if they can hear you.
okay,
Just talk to us.
let's see if I can get back on there.
We're waiting for Ron Spooner. He's in Texas. Is he?
Hello?
Okay, we're going to use my phone. Hang on just a second. Okay, Ron, I have you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Molly, let's establish quorum.
Okay, for the roll, President Don Wells.
Here.
Vice President Marilyn Stout is in Alaska. Second Vice President Al Roper.
Here.
Secretary Molly Knotts, I'm here. Treasurer Bill Tubb.
Here.
Director Scott DeFilippis.
Here.
And Director Ron Spooner is by phone.
Yes, I'm here on phone.
Okay. All right, well, quorum is established. The meeting's called to order. Do we have any comments from the residents?
Proof of notice was provided by me just now.
Okay.
Yes, we have one.
It's me.
Thank you.
I'll save you time, waiting to go anywhere. Still looking for the central link.
We have to come to the microphone so that everyone that's not in the room can hear.
Still looking for the central link.
You want to respond to that?
The telecommunications surplus report.
Yes, sir.
Finance Committee is looking at that, and we will be presenting a report shortly.
Thanks, Bill.
Can't do anything about it, so.
Okay, has everyone looked at the minutes from the past meeting? And there have been some changes that were in the last board pack regarding the street light proposal, just a few corrections in that. Does anybody have any changes? Then do we move to have those approved as presented?
I so move.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Was there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, my report. It's going to take a little longer than 3 minutes, but I'm going to shoot for 4. June's been a busy month for our HOA. We've settled in and can see progress in many areas of concern and emphasis. Our lake aeration project has been permitted, and the installation of the electrical portion of the project will begin the week after the 4th of July. Additionally, the street light project has been tied into the lake project and will begin at the same time. We contacted LCEC as requested at our last meeting and attempted to negotiate with them, but to no avail. And I want to thank Jim Swigert for making that contact. I received a call from Debbie Hartman at Pope Properties letting me know that Pope had made a decision to support Sandoval with Pope employees until such time that a replacement can be found for our vacant operations position. These employees will provide coverage for the deed restriction enforcement program. She wanted to ensure us that Jerry could take his time and find the right new employee and avoid making a rushed decision. Our legal team has been in negotiation regarding the TM legal challenges and are progressing. Additionally, we have been in contact with TM and understand that the final street surfacing in Phase 3 has been sent out to bid and a selection is forthcoming. I would anticipate another 6 to 8 weeks lag time before we see any equipment rolling on the roads. The upcoming PDP, Planned Development Project, hearing with the city is scheduled for July the 18th. The first step is the city's approval for the process is for our proposed clubhouse expansion. This is something that we've already contracted for. The Gersdorf architectural firm will be our formal representative at this hearing. It's a two-step process. After the 18 July hearing, a final hearing will be held before City Council at the regularly scheduled monthly meeting. After PDP approval, club plans can still be altered or modified to meet our budget requirements and community desires. Our reserve study has been received. The numbers are up due to additional items being added to the list of common area HOA responsibilities, namely the addition of the Phase 3 roads, fencing of Phase 3 perimeter, Somerville roads, and Somerville fencing, to name a few. Let me emphasize that we are still fully funded. We just want to keep it that way. The funding process has been home sales in our community and can still be a major funding source. I'm only recommending a discussion be held regarding a policy going forward to ensure that this account remains fully funded. I believe a minor adjustment in funding will be recommended by the board, and the options are all good. I don't see any option as being painful, no matter which option or combination of options is selected. Two major areas of concern for me and my fellow board members is the constant tailgating at our entrance points and the on-street parking violations. First, I've asked our general manager to set up a formal policy of retaining financial restitution for gate strikes. It's interesting to note that 3 gate strikes recently have been by Sunday drivers employed by the U.S. Postal System. I'm also requesting a formal report each month regarding the financial reimbursement that we receive. Addressing the second area of concern, repeat violators of our on-street parking policy, I have directed our general manager to establish an active policy and procedure to provide the necessary enforcement. I would like to ask our senior family members to ensure that all driving age members of their home understand the Sandoval policy about parking on the street after 1 a.m. Again, a report of the number of violations and tows will be requested as a monthly report. And I cannot thank enough the members of this board, the community and committee volunteers for all their hard work, hours spent, and diversity that they bring to the community. We might not always agree, but we are certainly working for a common goal of making Sandoval the best place to live in Southwest Florida, and I commend you all. Bill, you're up.
Treasurer's report. Okay, the May 31st financial highlights, per Jeff Moore, the Polk Director of Accounting, 2 items of note. The May 31st, 2019 financial statements have been reformatted since we sent out a copy, but on your seats, and the board has the new copy that has 4 columns instead of 3, so that the telecommunications surplus fund has its own column, and it makes it more readable. You can see immediately how much money's in there. So that was the recommendation of the Finance Committee, and that has been implemented. Since the original financials were issued, and per the General Manager's instructions, Jeff has added a prior period adjusting entry to reclassify the 2019 expenditure of Earth Networks from work performed in 2018 back into 2018's financial as an accrual from the Telecommunications Fund to pay for the work. The prior period adjustment removed $8,352 from the 2019 operating statement and has changed both the month-to-date and year-to-date results. I support this adjusting entry and the funding source as it was based on the board action taken at the July 17, 2018 meeting. Since our May meeting, when I pointed out several budget line items which are either near or over annual budgets. For those line items, we've spent an additional $11,035 on those line items. The general manager has been actively recasting the 2018 budget, or 2019 budget, and will be presenting his findings later in this meeting, so I'm not concerned with these expenditures pending his report and findings. Since our May meeting, our general manager and I have been in contact with Mr. Charles Stewart at Mutual of Omaha Bank, who's our investment advisor, and we've taken care of all issues related to the change in board members, general manager, and treasurer since the beginning of 2019. Additionally, we gave instructions and executed transactions to reinvest $675,000 in association funds from CDs which had matured since the beginning of 2019. These funds were reinvested per the board's instructions into bank certificates of deposit with maturities from 6 months to 2 years. We have 3 additional CDs which will mature in 2019, 1 in August and 2 in November, and we'll be prepared for that. The CDs we purchased were a $225,000 principal bank at 2.45% interest maturing on March 16th of 2020, a $225,000 Morgan Stanley bank at 2.5% interest maturing on June the 7th of 2021, and a $225,000 Morgan Stanley private bank at 2.5% maturing June the 7th of 2021. And just so you know, Morgan Stanley Bank and Morgan Stanley Private Bank are 2 different banks, so we have full insurance at both of those. One note of interest is that the latest rate sheets indicate that the August reinvestment might be at a lower rate of return than the ones we just purchased. Instead of being 2.5%, they're showing 1.9 and 2.0, so rates are definitely going down. The board resolved for Jerry Evans, Jeff Moore, and myself to be authorized contracts on the BB&T Bank on the Cube account, and we're working on that now. Got a plan for it to put us on the account, transfer the money out into our operating account, and then change the Cube, if you use a credit card up here, instead of the money going into that, just coming into our operating account. As stated previously, automation of accounts payable process to expedite timely payments of association invoices by Pope Properties will be available in the next 6 months or so. The current account payable process has been modified per the recommendations of the Finance Committee to expedite processing, and the General Manager will update you on this in his report as well. And the draft of the 2019 reserve study has been received. I've shared it with the Finance Committee so we can add any questions they might have to the board's questions for Jerry to submit to reserve advisors prior to them issuing the final report. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Jerry, it's your general manager's report.
Can everybody hear me? Am I on? First thing, a little bit of a repeat reserve study. So just for everybody's a little bit more detail. So in 2016 was the last full report we had. And if you looked at, for instance, the year 2020, in 2016, they predicted that we were going to have to fund $274,500 in 2020. Because of the addition of assets, now we're having to contribute $354,000. So $79,500 more in assets, basically, is the way you can look at it. And again, what caused that increase was Somerville Wall, Somerville Road, Phase 3 walls, Phase 3 roads, and then 2 other smaller items. We moved up the water slide repair. It's only $20,000 is the allotment, so it's not a lot of effect. And then we also moved up our wall repair, and I think they allotted us like $372,000. The reason I wanted to point that number out is we don't think, it's very early. The Capital Improvements Committee, ad hoc committee, is working on it, but I already believe that we're not going to spend anywhere near that. So the next time, say for instance, we save $150,000 on that, the next time we do a reserve study update, that would reflect a new funding number that would reduce that number. So if it's $79,500 now, might be the equivalent of only $50,000 with an adjustment like that, just to give you an idea. Second item I have is the 2019 budget. I think at the last meeting, as Bill mentioned, there were several line items that he projected out that were over budget, that if controls weren't made, it would equate to a $189,000 deficit. And so what I committed to do is basically reforecast. So I took the first now 5 months of actuals and plug them in, so it's a little bit easier with historical data to see what we spent and where we're going to go. Like it says, a reforecast. So I did find several line items that were over budget, as Bill said, but there were many more that were under budget. So as a result, I ended up actually a week ago a positive $1,700 or 54, I think 1754, which is an extremely tight budget if we're talking about the size of budget we have. And then just to give you an idea of things that can happen, this week I got a $3,400 invoice from a 2018 expense for Gate 1 and Gate 2 that was never paid. I've already talked to Bill about it. I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about it. So that flopped my positive 17 and my reforecast to a negative 17. Well, next week I might get something else in a positive. So every month I continue to do that reforecast. It was a little bit more work up front. Basically, the process was going through virtually every contract we have to verify the amounts were correct and project that out, and just a lot of research to find out what money was in what account, so I would then know where we're going. And so that was worth the process of doing it, not only to make us feel better about where we stand today, but it also gave me a jump start on my work for the 2020 budget, which starts in about 2 or 3 weeks. So all in all, and again, if I didn't say it, every month I will continue to do a reforecast. It'll be a lot quicker. I'll be able to do it in an hour or so the day I get the new financials. Any such time, about $10,000 is my threshold. If I go over budget by $10,000, I'll be bringing it to the board's attention. So just know, unless anything's ever said in this meeting, we're still safe. And I believe that we will be in the year under budget, but it will be tight. Next item I have is really half of an answer to Bill's statement, and really it was more towards Ron's on the AP process. Wanted to explain how that rolls. So every Monday, Carol downloads invoices from the AP inbox and assigns a GL code to it, and also ensures the appropriate staff member or volunteer, whoever was in charge of that project, initials off that the project was done to their satisfaction and it's ready to pay. Most of that is either me or sometimes Carol if it's administrative contracts, but sometimes like Al will be signing off on projects, and Scott, and everybody will probably have an opportunity at some point. And then after that's done, the same day on Monday, I meet with Carol, and then we go over every invoice and go over every GL code. She's going to get better and better with that as time goes on, but right now we're basically going over every invoice and every GL code to make sure that it's correct. And then I actually initial off on every invoice. Then later that day, Bill comes in and he takes a third look at it and initials off on the invoice as well. And then that same day, we scan them in on Monday, and we send them to Pope Accounting. Then on Tuesday, hard copies of the invoices are filed by vendor locally here in our office, so we have a vendor file for everybody. Also on Tuesday, Pope Accounting inserts the invoices into their software system. Then on Wednesday, Pope Accounting sends me an open payable report that I have my last look at, so now we're looking at 4 times, and I tell them pay all or don't pay this. And the reason that's important is for two things. One is it's really geared towards developer deficit funding. If you guys went through that period, everybody lived here, the developer funds the deficit, so your cash is real tight. So before I pay a bill, I want to make sure I run a cash report, make sure I have the money to pay it. Well, in this particular case, it is the same thing. We do watch our cash, but it's also a next opportunity that 4 more days have gone by, and if there's any concern about any invoice, we still have that additional 4 days to hold it back. So it's that 4th look at it. Then on Thursdays, checks are cut, and then Fridays they're mailed out. And so some of the schedule, this is the way that it's designed, and it's either done this way or sometimes a day earlier. Meaning most of the time I'm doing my invoices with Carol and Bill on Fridays, but we have until Monday to do it. And most of the time checks are mailed from Pope on Friday, but a lot of times they're mailed on Thursday a day earlier. So this is like a worst case scenario of the 1 week recurring cycle that happens. Next thing I have is towing, and good news. So if anybody either saw the video or was here the last month, our issue was twofold. One, it was that we were having a hard time finding a tow company that would come in because it takes them a long time with the logistics they have to go through with contacting the city of Cape Coral. As a clarification, the city of Cape Coral does not need to come out. They just need to be contacted. So that wasn't the overriding concern. More the overriding difficulty was finding a company with adequate insurance. I recommended $1 million. Absolutely got the door shut. I mean, couldn't get anywhere. Called my broker, thought it was strange. He said, well, I agree with you, $1 million's what we would want, but we can go down to 500. So we started again at 500,000 general liability coverage is what I'm speaking of. And still nothing. So there was one company, and it happens to be the company that Somerville has, Romans Towing, who have 300,000 general liability. So I called my broker back and said, listen, this is the best I can do. Is there any way that we can make this work, maybe with a supplemental insurance policy to protect us or whatever? So he said that he would feel comfortable with 300,000 general liability if we get them to sign an indemnification agreement, basically holding us harmless. And then he said that even if something did happen and we have that indemnification and it was catastrophic and they used all of the tow company's insurance money, then our general liability would kick in after they used theirs. So he felt 300,000 level was a fair risk, and that you know you have to calculate odds and chances of something bad, but basically any vehicle. He felt 300. You know, we're talking about vehicle damage, vehicle theft, lose a vehicle, $300,000 would cover it of their money, so it wouldn't have to, we wouldn't have to worry about it. You know, I think the only time, quite honestly, we would probably get into a situation where we would be involved with our insurance company is if there was something catastrophic, you know, a shooting or something like, you know, major like that, which is extremely rare. So bottom line is he felt comfortable with it. I did look at the contract that Romans Towing had. It was inadequate. It was like a one-page agreement. So I added several clauses, indemnification clause, insurance clause, termination clause, severability clause. I mean, go on and on. So it's more of a professional contract that protects us a lot better. I sent it to them on Monday. They hadn't responded. I called them today, and they assured me that they had some issues going on. Had nothing to do with that. And they haven't studied it yet, but on the surface, they don't see any problem. I'm looking to try to start on July 1st, but maybe that's a little aggressive. I mean, we're only talking, that's just next week. But to give you an idea, we're looking at least within a week or two, probably being able to roll this out. What I will be doing prior is obviously sending emails out and communications out, letting everybody know all the details, who we're using, their contact information, and what we will be towing for, so it doesn't take anybody by surprise. And I'll probably send a couple of those out, one very early day one, and then maybe one on the day we start, just as a last reminder.
Jerry,
Yes.
Can I have a question on that?
Sure.
Or comment also. What kind of worries me with, you know, we started at $1 million, went down to 5, and we went down to 3. So the vendor's lack of an insurance policy then falls back on us if it's catastrophic. But what's worrying me is that's going to be a charge against our insurance because they're not going to be able to subrogate it because we've already maxed out their insurance.
Right.
So we're basically carrying their shortfall in insurance and I get it's catastrophic and I understand that, but that's kind of troublesome to me that their lack of business ownership is falling, the onus is falling on us to cover their shortfall in insurance.
That is the case, but I will say that is likely the only way in the near future we are going to have towing in Sandoval. Does anybody else have any concerns about that enough to where you want us to hold off moving forward? We can always, you know, stop at any time we want. I inserted a 30-day no cause termination. So
right, and I'm not saying we should not tow, because when I'm looking at our security reports from the nighttime, you'll see, you know, this is I think somebody's up to the 9th or the 12th parking
There's
violation.
one that's 11.
Yeah, and I mean, come on, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so they're just looking at it as we don't care anymore. So you know what? No, there's going to be no number 12, for let's hook that car and
right.
get it out.
that's right. Okay. Duly noted, thank you.
Jerry, you did mention the possibility of an additional insurance policy that we would acquire. Was there any cost that was given to you for that type of policy?
We already have it, and even if there was a separate one, it would still come to Scott's point about
Right.
us having to file under that and our premiums going up and affecting us, but we essentially already have the other policy through our general liability. That's where it would fall to.
Is there any consideration to deed restriction fines or administrative charges for people that don't follow the street parking policy?
I'm looking into that from a logistical standpoint, not from an application. Yes, I think we can charge it, but how do we charge it? How do we get that charge to the owners? Is it so I just haven't had an opportunity to look at that since we've talked, but yeah, I think that's very reasonable. So what Don's suggesting, maybe if it's, what is it, to 175, I think, maybe a $50 administrative fee on that, make it a little bit steeper, but and maybe that's something we look at, see how the towing goes the first month, and then we look at and see, because, quite honestly, if we clean it up in a week or two or three, I'm not looking to gouge anybody or gain money. I just want it cleaned up.
I just know that in the HOA, we're good at paying, getting bills, but we're not very good at collecting when people are offending us. And
Right.
I just wanted to
Right.
see if we could start a policy that, there's a little give and take each way.
Yes, I will look at them. My next topic was a board requested topic. It was security reports, and the board wanted to know. So for you guys, if you don't know this, every morning we receive a security report from the night before, and it's a one pager, and items that they want to bring to our attention that need action are usually highlighted in red. So it's a pretty easily read statement. So we've got all of our board of directors on the distribution. We have Carol Essig on it, and we have Jim Swigert on it for light pole reasons. So what happens is Carol is the point to the. It used to be Mark, so everything I'm saying what was Mark, and it will be the new assistant manager once we hire him. But right now, Carol is the first person that looks at it, and any maintenance needs, she creates work orders for Bob, or if it's something that Bob can't handle, she'll give it to me, and we'll look at contracting help or handling it accordingly. If it's a deed restriction matter, Carol already handles our deed restriction letters. She knows to go ahead and formulate a letter and to get that out. And if it's any irregularities, anomalies that I need to look at, doors that aren't working or security issues like that, then she alerts me, and I look into it that day. So just wanted to assure everybody that those reports are being looked at every day. My next item is basically related to the new hire, capital projects, and deed enforcement. It all relates together. So the explanation that I wanted to give you guys is when I first started, there's a couple of things that I wasn't aware of. One, I knew we had a deed restriction issue. I toured the community, and I was out and about, so I obviously could see, but I don't think I realized early on when I made the decision on the job description for the operations manager, didn't realize quite the extent. It's a little bit bigger thing than I thought it was. Second, what I didn't know is the amount of volunteerism, not only from our board, but from members of the community, and specifically the Ad Hoc Capital Improvements Committee. Because this operations manager, the hire was to get them to do primarily project management and secondarily HOA management. So the salary that we had available for that position, quite honestly, it didn't fit a higher level project manager. So it was probably a tough squeeze is what we were trying to do. Since the resignation of Mark, I've been able to I look at it as a huge opportunity to have a very quick second chance. So it's quite obvious what we need is, since we have the help from the ad hoc committee and the homeowners, is a person that their primary responsibility is basically deed enforcement. They will be a deed enforcement professional. And secondarily, they'll handle administrative duties, help out the project ad hoc committees, and do other administrative work. So I started recruiting for that position about 3 weeks ago. So happy about the unemployment rate, as I'm sure everybody is, but that hurts you when you're looking for a position. The resumes I'm getting are, quite honestly, I probably have 6 or 7 that are experienced. I have one guy that is going to interview. I'm looking for 2 minimum, or possibly 3, and I'm going to have the board talk to him as well. So the other 6 or 7, it's uncanny. I mean, you're looking at their histories are, they work 1 year, then 12 months, or 14 months, then 8 months, and it's just the type of resumes, the quality of resumes are coming in. It's just unbelievable. So we're adding we're reaching out further in different avenues than the company's done before, and we're doing everything we can to recruit quality people. But as was mentioned earlier, I don't want to rush it and not hire the right person. So although the person I have identified could very well be that person, we're going to give it at least another couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll get at least 1, maybe 2 more candidates. And so that kind of rolls into the deed restriction part of this and the capital improvements. But the other thing to know is what Don said earlier is in the interim, the board has agreed to bring out 1 person. Pope has agreed to bring out 1 person on Tuesdays, Eric Howard. I think a lot of people know him, and he's doing deed restriction drives. The first week he does some of our more challenging areas. Then the second week he'll do the broader community. Then the third week he'll go back to the challenging areas and re-inspect. 4th week, expand out to more of the general areas. So that's the mode he's going in right now until we can get someone here full time. The other thing, it's not on my agenda right now, but I wanted to mention that Don didn't, is that Pope also agreed, because their contract with us states that they will supply a person on site 16 hours a week down to compliance. Well, once we hire the new person, they're obviously not doing that anymore. So what they've agreed to do to compensate us is to pay 40% of the salary of the assistant manager, which quite honestly is a great deal for the association. It's a higher number than the 16 hours would have been. Excuse me. So that wraps that up. Also, phase 3 final lift. I talked to Taylor Morrison today, just about an hour or 2 ago, and he said that today they finalized they signed off on the contractor that's going to do it, and they're just waiting to hear back from them on their availability. But through informal conversations during that process, he believes it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. So, I don't want you leaving here. In my mind, I'm thinking the end of July, is probably what I would think. But again, he's saying within 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll see. On the wall, this was another board member request that I mentioned this. I'm going to defer to the Capital Improvements Ad Hoc Committee for an update. I talked to Scott earlier today, and he is going to be specific on what the plan is for the repair of the perimeter wall. And then something else that Molly brought to me was, and this is new to Molly, I just got this information a minute ago. She saw an article in the paper, which was a really attractive article for us, and it basically was FEMA works through the county, and they have something called a disaster debris removal program, where if we have a declared local emergency, we can sign a right-of-way agreement, and they'll come into the community and basically assist with some of the heavy debris removal. It costs quite a bit of money. However, what I found out through reading through the entire article was that they require us to sign an indemnification, which basically, essentially what this means is when their crews come in, if there's any claim against us due to their, if they have a car wreck, if they drop a tree on someone's car, if they hurt someone, any claim, we have to indemnify them, and we can't sue them. So it's a large exposure. And I talked to our insurance agent about that, and he said no way he would recommend us doing that. It's just not worth the money. He recommends hiring a professional landscape company or a tree removal company, whatever, to do that. So we'll talk a little bit more, but that's the update that I have on that. But I appreciate you bringing that, because at first glance, that was a great I thought it was a great opportunity.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When we had our other storm, Irma, we were, had FEMA come in. Did we ever get reimbursed by them?
I have no idea. I didn't know FEMA came in.
I mean, if someone knows, say so, because I don't know that answer.
I do believe we did, because when I was back with Landscape then, I believe Sean had submitted it to them, and we did get money back.
Okay.
If my memory serves me, how much it was, I can't attest to that, but.
I'll put that on my general manager report next meeting.
Yeah, I think
and
it'd be
I'll
nice
report
to
on it.
report that we did if it happened.
Okay. Next item is collections, and someone had a question about collections, which actually prompted me to create a collections policy and slip it into the board 1 day or 2 days ago. And I told them when I gave them the collection policy, I realized it's short notice. They all have it with them tonight. We're going to perhaps vote on that on the agenda a little bit later, but at least I wanted to tell you guys, so if we had any comments on it, we could hear that before we vote. And if you don't mind, I know I'm taking a lot of time, but I think this is very important. Collection letters and fees on day 1, post quarterly assessment charges to each account. On day 10, 10-day grace period to avoid late fee and delinquency fee expires. On day 15, Pope runs a delinquency report and adds a $25 late fee and a $15 delinquency fee to each account that has a balance of $50 or greater. Day 15 also, Pope sends a late letter to delinquencies of $50 or greater, stating to avoid additional fees they must pay within 2 weeks. Then on day 30, Pope runs a delinquency report and adds $25, another $25, and another $15 delinquency fee to each account as a balance of $50 or greater. Then on day 30, Pope sends a late letter to delinquencies of $50 or greater, stating to avoid additional fees and possible legal fees they must pay their balance within 2 weeks. Suspensions on the 16th of each month, the general manager will run a delinquency report. And at the following board meeting, 1, any owner who is 60 days or greater in delinquency to be sent to the attorney for collections. And 2, any owner who is 90 days or greater in delinquency be suspended from leasing their home, suspension of vehicle access decal, and suspension of common area access cards. Board of Director committee participation. Owners who are delinquent 90 days or greater may be suspended from Board of Director and or committee participation until such time the balance is paid in full. Acceleration of assessments. After 90 days, the association may accelerate the annual base assessment for delinquent owners, basically meaning if you goes 90 days late, we can ask you for the whole year, not just that quarter. Interest. Monthly interest is added by Pope at a rate of 1.5% monthly. Application of payments. First to interest, second to late fees, third to attorney's fees and collection costs, if any, and lastly to assessments. Payment plans. A delinquent owner may request a payment plan to satisfy the outstanding balance. However, any proposed plan must be through the attorney's office and will be subject to a payment plan monitoring fee charged by the attorney. Such plan may not reduce the total amount due, including assessment, late fees, and interest accrued prior to the payment plan's inception. Plan must specify that failure to comply with the payment plan will result in continuation of the collection process, including the lien and foreclosure process. Plan terms are 50% down on the debt owed, plus a payment plan must be concluded within the same year as the delinquency was established. Almost done. Delinquency status, beginning with the date on which the account is forwarded to the attorney for collections, all communications regarding delinquent accounts and any payment must be directed to the attorney. The owner will be responsible for attorney's fees and costs incurred in collection process and is provided for in the association's collection engagement agreement. Voting rights. After 90 days of delinquency, the association may suspend the voting rights of the delinquent owner. Lifting of suspensions. The GM will lift suspensions upon verification the account has been paid in full. And lastly, the policy statement. The above policy provides a general collections policy. In no event shall the association be strictly required to adhere to the above timeline. Sometimes those dates might fall a day or two off, depending on Saturday and Sundays. And the association shall be permitted to exercise discretion on a case-by-case basis. So at least wanted to get that out there, so later on in the meeting, when we this comes up for vote, if it does, and we have discussion, then we can open it up. The last thing I have, or I have a couple more things. One of the last things I have was also asked by a board member, but is of big interest to the community, especially now. And basically, it's our compliance guideline, what we do with our deed restrictions and how all that rolls. So first, inspections are conducted each 2 weeks. Second, first note of violation will be a friendly reminder. Third, second notice of the same or similar violation within a 6-month period will result in a letter sent to the owner stating that if the violation is not resolved within 10 days, the owner may be fined and suspended from common areas as well as their vehicle decal deactivated. So basically, you're getting first one's a friendly reminder. The second one is the more legal letter. Upon a second violation, the matter will be placed in a queue to go before the board at their next scheduled meeting. 1 week prior to each board meeting, violations in the queue will go before the board and will be sent to them in their board pack. At the upcoming board meeting, the board will vote to fine the unit $100 for the violation, as well as being suspended from common areas, as well as their vehicle decal deactivated for a reasonable time period. Assuming the board agrees to the fines and suspensions, the next day a letter will be sent to the owner stating the board imposed fine and suspensions, and then detailing a hearing date currently scheduled for each first Wednesday of the month. On the hearing date, the Covenants Committee will hear each case, then vote to either uphold the fine or suspend the fine. That's all the discretion they have. They can't negotiate, et cetera. They can say yes or no. Assuming the fine and suspension is upheld, the next day a letter will be sent to the owner outlining the fine and the suspension stating the fine is due within 5 days. If the fine is not paid, the account will be sent to the attorney for collections. Owners do have the opportunity for a hearing before the board, which will be held on the third Wednesdays of each month. So after you go to the hearing, it's a committee. They don't uphold it, and they go through with the fine. Owners do have the legal opportunity to have a hearing before the board. Fines and suspensions will be levied against the lessee if there is a lessee. If the lessee does not pay the fine, then the fine will be levied against the owner. That's the process we go through with covenants. Next thing, commercial landscape Monday through Friday. So one of our board members, Scott, brought the idea up on just an idea about what the possibilities might be of limiting commercial landscapers doing work in the community on Saturday and Sunday. The impetus there is, quiet enjoyment, peaceful. Everybody loves that. And I think, the whole thing is we'd probably love no landscaping to be on Saturday, Sunday. If we're looking at quiet enjoyment, wouldn't that be great? But quite honestly, people work Monday through Friday. That's the only way they can do it. But if you're contracting your landscaper, there shouldn't be any reason why you couldn't do it during the week. It may even be more preferable so you have the yard looking nice for the weekend. So basically, what the commitment I gave Scott was I'd open it up for discussion, and if there's any traction, then we can either put it on the agenda later on in the meeting for a vote, or maybe we can do some more research and put a more formal policy together for the next board meeting. But first, he just wanted me to bring it up, give Scott an opportunity to speak on it, and see if there's any traction on this. Scott?
Yeah, it was, since I was a realtor, as Jerry alluded to, there's a thing called quiet enjoyment, and it mostly refers to a tenant and the landlord, but it also refers to a landowner being able to use his land and again enjoy it in peace and quiet. And there was also, and it dovetailed recently, there was a post on one of the Facebook threads where within the last day or so, I thought I took a screenshot of it, where a resident had just brought that up. She was apparently sick. There was a landscaper out on a Saturday or Sunday morning at 7:15. And again, they're within the city ordinances from 7A to 7P. But again, there's some, being deed restricted community, I think we can set some different parameters maybe that would accommodate those things, because now at build out we have 1,425 homes. So we're looking at possibility of commercial, not residential, but commercial people in here Monday through Sunday, 7A to 7P, 7 days a week. So if we wanted to put some sort of constraints just on the commercial folks, where, if you have massive accounts, do your other accounts, at another time, but Sandoval, we want things done Monday through Friday, or 12 o'clock on the weekend, something along those lines. But I would encourage you, if you're also on any of those Facebook pages, to go look at that thread that somebody, and there was quite a bit of bantering back and forth, and I might say there were 20 residents who commented, and they were all in favor of. So I just wanted to bring that up as something that is out there. And as, you know, a deed restricted community, we also could possibly tighten up than what the city has.
I will make a comment on that. Does this include the landscape companies that we hire as a pass-through for Sandoval? Crawford does the villas, and Florida Evergreen does numerous areas. I know their policy in the past has been Monday through Friday. However, if there are inclement conditions where it's rained too full of those days so that they are not behind and they can keep up with their contract, they will cut on Saturday. I mean, we could limit their hours to say start at 9 a.m. on Saturday and have to end at 4. Or are you strictly speaking of independent contractors coming in to do independent lawns?
Before you answer, I would say that there is an opportunity to have the contractors make up the time by working a couple of evenings until 7, which actually they're doing this week because they want July. In fact, we're about to send an announcement out to the Florida Evergreen homes, and they're taking out the July 4th and 5th off, so they're going to work until 7, 3 days a week to catch up. So I actually thought about his deal when that happened. So there is that opportunity as well.
But we're coming into the season, as we all know, that we get those heavy late afternoon rains. But we've been unusual this season. We've had a lot of morning and early day rains, then clearing up. I can understand them working a little later, but I just want to clarify if you're only speaking of independent contractors for independent homes, or if you are including Florida Evergreen and Crawford in that.
Yeah, and again, that's a great question, up for discussion too, because nothing I put was in stone. Having owned commercial landscaping business, I can tell you, when you have a commercial mower that's putting out 125 decibels, I don't care who's behind it, whether it's Florida Evergreen, it's still the noise. And again, sure, there has to be some sort of give and take for extenuating circumstances. So, in as much as it probably wouldn't happen on a regular basis, I think we would have to probably provide some latitude for something like that. But again, it was just commercial, because a homeowner who's got a Toro push mower, it's a lot quieter than a 56 or 40-inch, Skag or something
So
along those.
what I'm hearing, I think you say, is that your position is geared more for the independent homeowner. Say you're on Stony Hill and you don't have the lawn service provided by either Crawford or Florida Evergreen. So if you chose to have your landscaper come on Saturday, this would preclude that. You would have to have your landscaper scheduled Monday through Friday.
Yes, and also I think, though, in my opinion, in looking at that last thread there were people who have the pass-through done on their homes, and they were complaining about the time too. So I think it just might be, again, like Jerry said, an educational thing where if you are running behind, city ordinance says you can put it till 7, and maybe we could say 7 o'clock during the week isn't a bad idea, because people are probably doing theirs after work or something along those lines. So I think, again, it's in its infancy, so as we massage it, if it does have traction, we could certainly look at other, avenues of compliance.
So what I'm looking for from the board is some guidance. I mean, do we have enough traction from the board to where you'd like me to spend some time in writing a draft policy to consider?
Comments?
I think we should feel as a community, see
Survey?
how widespread the request is.
Mm-hmm. Saturday concerns me because I at least Saturday, maybe not at 7 o'clock in the morning, but 9 to 12. I mean, you're out doing things. I don't see where that's restrictive. Sunday, different story.
I'd be a lot more receptive to Sunday.
Yeah, me too.
So you're suggesting a survey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a communications committee
Yes.
thing that we might be able to do?
Is that something you guys could tackle?
I believe so.
Okay.
I would say we really can't discriminate against private homeowners that have it contracted out, and let the commercial that they're in a contractual relationship with the association do it, and not someone else do it. If it's got, I think that it's got to be everybody or nobody.
I agree. I agree, Bill.
Okay. Last thing I have, you good, Scott? Last thing I have is just some information really for an agenda item later tonight, and it's really to Don that the cost to add an aerator at Somerville would be no more than $6,000, and the cost to maintain would be no more than $400 a year, and that's compared to our current cost of $5,800 a year. So we're paying $58 without Somerville, pay $400 more with them, so it's not that much of a, yeah. Information for later tonight. That's all I have.
Okay. We've changed the format of the meeting to eliminate all the committee reports unless there's something really important of our regular committees. They're sending us all a report. The board gets it in a pack, and it's being posted on the website. So everybody has the opportunity to delve into it and to go into detail if you so desire, rather than us all sit here for 3 hours listening to all these things. It's an attempt for an improvement. Our ad hoc committees are something that are dealing with specific issues, and I think they need to be addressed at each meeting, and so we'll now proceed to ad hoc committee reports. Sunshade.
Sunshade. Just before I got here tonight, and I told Molly I didn't have anything, but I was able to get some information that I've been waiting for about 2 weeks from the 2 vendors who made proposals. And the last time we met, as I had said, we had some questions for the vendors. One didn't respond. One had gotten in touch with me before tonight's meeting, answered all of our questions pertaining to materials, warranties, wind load, some billing, and everything that he got back to me, which Bill and I just quickly shared across here, would lead me to believe just at first blush, and I think our committee feels the same way because we were leaning towards that, would be towards giving the bid to Apollo Sunshade. And I have that bid, but actually I asked him also to sharpen his pencil since we are, it is a sunshade for a playground for children and not necessarily a commercial restaurant type or outdoor thing establishment. So he was going to go back to management and see if they could sharpen their pencil on their bid. But they did note in their bid that if we paid in full, there would be a 2% discount on their price. So it kind of was in line with the other one. So, but again, they did answer all of our questions. And again, Apollo does have a better warranty on their shade itself. Instead of 10 years, they do have a 15-year warranty. Their poles are 20 years. They're rated at 115 mile an hour with the shade up, 155 with the shade down. And all of their permitting fees, which was questionable, when they put their permitting fees, if anything costs extra, it is what it is in the quote. So if the city or whatever asks them for anything more, it's going to be what those fees are. So again, I think the committee would probably lean towards Apollo because we did have some serious questions. So basically with Apollo, we're getting 5 years more on the shade structure itself, and we're getting 8 feet more of coverage than the previous bid. So again, we're getting more, and the price is a little bit more, but he's going to work on that price too. So the price that came in total lock, stock, and barrel was $39,923, not including the 2% discount if orders are prepaid in full.
I have a question. Is that, would that retain the existing top on the playground that's there now?
No, they're going to remove the existing top. I spoke with them because that was a question that had come up about bracing that existing structure. They went to engineering. The top is strictly, it has no structural value to it right now. So what they're going to do is they are going to cap it with the powder-coated material, and their engineers are aware of the exact structure that's out there that they did not need bracing.
Agree with that? Are you sure?
I
mean, you've got at least 8 to 10 foot pole standing up that doesn't have anything holding the top part from moving around, whereas with the top that's on there, that's all stabilized.
I'm not an engineer. He spoke to their engineering department and told me over the phone today that they do not need to be stabilized. That top is just...
I'm not going to buy that right off the bat. I don't think so.
Again, I'm not an engineer. If anybody has an engineering degree and want to dispute his, we could do that, but I can reconfirm that with him and make sure that it does not need bracing.
You can invite him maybe to Q&A.
I told him that too. If we decide to proceed forward, if that's what we were going to do, we would have maybe him come in and also do something for the residents as to,
Well, the ad hoc committee was in favor of proceeding once those questions were answered. So I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with this, subject to getting the answer to you about the stabilization. We've been trying for 2 or 3 years to get it up. I think we could get on the move.
Do we have an artist rendition of what this would look like?
yes.
We don't have a form.
And he actually sent me, which was one of the questions, and I have the email, because we wanted to do site and, go out and do site reviews of what his installs are already there. And I got that in an email tonight, or today. And there were ones are definitely around the city, and most of the work that he has done has been for the city of Cape Coral. I'm just looking for his recent Cape Coral. So the city of Cape Coral, Serena Vista Park, 18 by 26 rectangular, which is out here.
Yep.
Paul Sandoval Park, Play Towers in 2016, City of Cape Coral. Gulf Elementary School, basketball court 2014 and 15. And then the Weston and Cape Coral, that's where they did sales, which are exactly what they are, sales. So those are we haven't gotten to them because I just got all that, but those are installations that he did that aren't new. I didn't want new installations. I wanted something that had some age to it so we could see how they weathered, how they aged. And
So they did the one out at Serena Vista?
yes, they did. In 2016, 18 by 26.
And how does that compare to this one, size-wise?
The one that they bid for us is 34 by 52.
What about taking this down, an impending storm? What's involved with that?
Great question. Both vendors had a little bit of a different way of doing it. Taking it down, though, is the easiest thing. And both of them said, listen, if you had skilled people or anybody with some knowledge, we could physically take it down, whether it was our maintenance people. The key is putting it back up because you have to get the tension and everything right. Apollo SunGuard subs that out. Apollo SunGuard is the manufacturer of this. So you go on a vendor's list for storms or whatever, and they have their approved vendors that come in, reinstall it, retension it to factory specs for whatever that price would be that we would negotiate the installation or reinstallation.
I mean, what would the weight of that huge thing, 24 by 50, will be? It sounds to me like it'd be pretty heavy.
Sounds to me like it's a professional's job, and I wouldn't even recommend anyone, whether it's our maintenance people or whatever, because I'm sure there's...
So we almost need to know how much it would cost us to get it down and up.
The up one from the one vendor was about $1,000 is what he quoted to reinstall that.
So you'd hope 500 or something.
Yeah, he said taking it down is minimal because they really, it's just a matter of undoing things and just packaging it up on
budget
site.
one down and one up a year. The budget number, $1,500.
Right.
Take care of it, yeah.
And again, how many times do we really take it down? Again, when it's standing, it's rated at 115 miles an hour. So we could make, or whatever our policy is as a board, we could make that judgment. If we know we have a tropical storm coming in at 75 miles an hour, we know it's rated to stay up. Anything over that, over the 115, they recommend taking it down.
What's the value of the fabric?
Value, dollar-wise?
Yeah.
They don't break it down. The value of the itself is $21,228, poles and fabric. The rest of it is engineering, layout, foundations, footers, all of that stuff. But Materials is 21,228.
What's the diameter of the poles?
For some reason, I thought it was 8 inches, but
And most of those are pretty wide.
yeah, they don't have it on here, exactly what it is.
Scott, I can,
Yeah, go ahead.
and Bill, I'll tell you, my concern in this, my concern is not the issue of shade or not having shade. My concern is that each of the board members has not received a packet in advance to be able to study this to make a decision tonight. I mean, every time we do something like this, we have a full packet ahead of the meeting, and we each have opportunities to bring questions forth ahead of time, so you'll be prepared for answers. I think we're getting a lot of this off the cuff, and it's just kind of a last-minute thing. I would not be prepared to vote on it this evening because I don't feel that I have enough knowledge to choose one company over another.
And that's fair, because I just received a lot of this tonight also, so.
I have a
or today.
recommendation. Why don't you share some of those close-by examples so any of the board members that want to drive by can take a look at that?
Yeah.
And then at the next meeting, before the next meeting, send out the pack. And then at the next meeting, have this guy come in, Q&A him, and then vote on it that night.
Okay. I can tell you for a fact that the one they put up at Gulf Elementary, when there's a storm there that needs to be taken down, the parents take it down and then put it back up. But I'm sure it's not as big as what we're talking about here.
Let's go look at them.
Yeah,
I think
this one
that's a
in
great
Gulf
idea.
Elementary is on a basketball court, so a basketball court's, 60 by 120 or something?
Yeah.
That's big.
Send us the list of those
Yeah,
names.
Yep.
Yeah. Would you email those to us, please?
I will.
With their addresses?
I'll look up the addresses. He didn't put them, he just put the name of the installation, Serena Vista Park, Paul Sanborn Park, Gulf Elementary, Weston Cape Coral.
And ask him about the diameter of these posts, too, because most of those are like, at least, a lot of them are 10.
Yeah, the other bid, just so you know, I think they said, for some reason I saw,
Would you happen to know if they did win at Lakes Park?
in Fort Myers?
Yeah.
I do not, he didn't, I asked him for close ones. I can call him back and ask him if he did the
Because
lakes.
I know the one at Serena Vista, it's just open underneath, but there's one at Lakes Park, which is above playground, similar to ours.
Okay. I'll have all that information in an email out to you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
And you'll invite him to the next meeting, and I'll just plan on that on the agenda. Okay.
I'd say come before the meeting, don't you think, so we can all ask him
So
questions?
the homeowners?
Well, they can do that too, but I think we need to, if we get a lot of our homework done, you'll be able to make a vote next meeting, whereas if you wait until the next meeting, then we have more questions, that just delays the thing a little bit.
Special meeting, a presentation, town hall type of thing?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Yeah, I need a date, so you'd work on that.
I think a town hall would be good for this, not a board meeting, and then we're all at liberty to talk about it, and it's not formal and
Okay.
be informative. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
And Bill, you're team members on this. Okay, clubhouse expansion.
Hold on. The committee has met twice during the past month and has continued to analyze information. The PDP, which stands for Plan Development Project, is the first formal requirement that has to be completed regarding our expansion project. The process was started months and months ago and has finally reached the hearing stage by the city. The first date that was announced in a letter from the City of Cape Coral to all Sandoval community members was also to appear in the local newspaper as required by law. Unfortunately, the news press did not publish the notice as per the requirement, so the hearing date had to be rescheduled. The timing is simply the culmination of the city's pre-reviews and the next step scheduled by the city. Items included in the PDP are the application fee to the City of Cape Coral for a project development plan, the survey for the area around the existing clubhouse building, the site plan for additional parking, the required collection plans for stormwater, the site and lighting plan, the potential plan for renovation of the existing clubhouse building, the potential plan for a new clubhouse, the potential plan for relocation of the volleyball court, the potential plan for the relocation of part of the basketball court. The PDP for Sandoval only establishes the location where the project will be built, addressing the surrounding infrastructure needs that will be required or needed to be altered. The cost or size of the clubhouse itself is not affected by this plan approval. In fact, any clubhouse design can still be utilized, be it the same size or smaller. The drawings for this phase of the plan have already been completed and were part of the initial fees paid for the project. As board member Ron Spooner indicated in last month's report, we are currently only in phase 1 of this project, and the goal of this committee is to present viable expansion options to the community. The committee is committed to this goal.
Any questions for Molly? Okay, the Taylor Morrison litigation, and Al Roper is going to present that report.
This is prepared by Ron Spooner. The TM committee continues to meet and work on TM-related issues. Of particular focus is the Phase 3 transition. We have had multiple constructive exchanges with TM and hope to get a significant number of Phase 3 items resolved prior to final transition. We expect to have a more expansive update in the near future.
Okay.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Any comments, Ron? Anything else?
Just thank you, Al. That's it for me.
Okay, good.
Got
All
it.
right. Then capital improvement projects.
We really didn't have anything until Jerry came to me and asked that we include what is just boiled up on the perimeter fencing issue. So we kind of, Al and I had met regarding that, and I know that Al and I believe Don had gone out previously, looked at the perimeter fencing, noted some deficiencies in the area, and it was kind of more in the H channel, if you will, of where the slats fit in. And again, they were obvious to them. So, but basically, Al and I had concluded was in the best interest of the fencing in itself and in the HOA is that we reach out to a fence expert or an engineer type of person who could analyze the whole fence from where we begin in Somerville to where we end over at the shops, note all of the deficiencies, and then their recommendations. Because I believe, as Jerry did earlier, I don't think the whole fence needs to be replaced, and I think probably that's where people who've got some eyes on it. Again, we're not the experts, but when we get the expert out there, I think it's not going to be that gross number that's been thrown out there before. So we're going to do our due diligence, get the expert in there, tell us what really needs to be done, and again, we'll get that done, and there might be some longevity left, and I think there's a lot of longevity left in that fence as we see it. If you guys have any other
I have one comment. Doing my police volunteer work today, I did a house check in Palmetto Palms Estates, which by the golf course, and their fence is, I think, made by the same company as ours. It's identical, except theirs is brown and ours is gray. So I would suggest maybe reaching out to them. I took a picture of it. Reach out to them and see if they by any chance know who the vendor is.
Is theirs in the same shape as ours?
No,
is?
looks pretty good. I didn't see any cracked verticals.
So I contacted Palmetto Pines and talked with them. It's not their fence, and they don't know the owners on the other side. However, the president of Palmetto Pines, the golf guy, lives there, and he is a contractor by trade. So I gave him my phone number. He's supposed to call me within a day or two. So I'll share that with you guys.
That's one thing that Al had brought up. Maybe we could find out who installed the original one here,
that's my
too.
whole point. When I saw that, I said, they're probably the age is about the same, but I did not see cracks in the verticals that I see here.
And I'm sure not too many companies make that style of.
No. I mean, our problem is the vertical posts, not the slats. I mean, we'll need slats. There's some that are broken, but if we could replace the verticals, we can retain the slats.
Yeah, I think because all of these years, no maintenance has been done on it, we get a preventative maintenance
Yeah.
program in there, we'll save a lot of money
Well,
for the
and the
homeowners down
fence
the road.
that has been broken was due to the storm, a branch falling on it and people climbing over it. So it's not the integrity, and the fence stood up during the Irvine. So there's some positive thoughts on the fence. Don't know.
I mean, that would be, I would suggest giving him a call, only because he was part of the original planning of this, and I think he may well know the vendor.
Okay, we could check that too.
Have
I
we
mean,
verified the
I'm
one
sure it
bid
was
we
a big
have
check
wasn't the
whenever it
original
was
company?
Oh,
put out,
absolutely,
you
sure
know,
it was.
Somebody's got a record of
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Okay, they weren't.
Yeah, actually, we did get one bid that I shared with Al, and I guess you shared with me. It was definitely not the original
Okay.
company. That was just somebody that
Okay.
I think Mark had called in, and that was that. Just that, and it's not even worth saying that number.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
it's not.
All right, well, good discussion, and let's put our heads together and see what we can come up with. You know, we got some avenues to research.
We do.
maybe. Okay, the next item is ARC member appointment.
So I'm glad you skipped over delinquent account suspensions because I really don't have business for that. But the delinquent account suspensions will be on the agenda every month, regardless
Oh,
whether we
I
have
didn't
business
need
or
to
not.
skip
And
schedule.
obviously, we don't have the business on now. Does everybody have that on their agenda?
No,
No.
I have an old one, and I
Okay.
have one before that.
So ARC committee appointment.
I have an obvious conflict of interest, so I will not participate in this.
You get to vote twice.
So we had an application from Martha Tubb, Bill's wife, thank you, to volunteer on the ARC committee. Recommended the board make a motion to appoint Martha Tubb to the ARC committee.
We need more members on that committee, is that
We do.
correct? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Okay, second, we have a motion and second, do we have discussion? What are you planning to build, Bill?
You may be surprised, Bill, you may be getting something you had no idea you were in for.
Okay, any other discussion? Then I recommend that we vote on this. All in favor of Martha being on the ARC, please signify by raising your hand.
Ask.
Raising my hand.
Okay, and Ron's raising his hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, 5. Mhm.
It was unanimous. with
Okay,
exception.
so Martha will now be a new member, and Carol has some help. Okay, resolution establishing appropriate conduct policy.
Okay, I will read this for the audience's benefit. Whereas Sandoval Community Association is the nonprofit Florida corporation responsible for the admin, operation, and management of Sandoval Community located in Lee County, Florida, and whereas the board of directors of the association is responsible for the day-to-day operation and management of the community, and whereas in order to ensure a congenial and productive environment, the board wishes to establish a conduct policy regarding owner and resident interaction with the association's employees, as well as other owners and residents. Now therefore it be it resolved as follows. 1, the above recitations are true and correct, and each and every one is incorporated herein its entirety by reference. 2, owners, residents, and their guests and invitees are at all times required to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. Displays of temper or other discourteous conduct, disrespect shown to the association employees or fellow owners and residents, and actions resulting in physical damage to others and or association property are typical but not exhaustive examples of improper behavior which could result in disciplinary action, including reprimand, fine, and or common facility use rate suspension. 3, the board shall be the sole judge of what constitutes improper behavior. 4, in the event any owner or resident fails to comply with this conduct policy and engages in improper conduct, such individual shall be subject to appropriate enforcement action by the association, which may include the imposition of fines, suspensions of common facility use rights, and any other appropriate legal action is determined in the sole discretion of the board.
Okay, we have this resolution on the table. Do I have a motion to adopt?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, is there discussion?
I'm going to be the first one to jump in on this. yesterday, maybe even today, I'm not sure when I checked my emails. I received an email from, and I'm not going to mention names or anything, but it's a volunteer person in Sandoval who helps out on one of our committees who was chastised, who was
Berated.
berated, chastised, beaten down for doing their job above and beyond, as that person always has done. And I'm a firm believer that no one, whether you're an employee of Pope, whether you're a volunteer board member or you're a volunteer committee member, should be assaulted verbally or physically by any resident or vendor. And that goes both ways. I don't believe that any employee of Pope or board member or volunteer committee person should treat any one of our residents in the way that is disrespectful. There is absolutely no room for that in my mind in this community, and I am 100% behind this conduct policy if there are any other changes that may be added to that.
Okay, I would like to suggest an amendment where it says, Board wishes to establish a conduct policy regarding owner and resident interaction with the association's employees. At that point, I would like to add community volunteers and vendor employees. And then down in item number 2, displays of temper or other discourteous conduct, disrespect to the association or other employees, I would like to put a comma there and include community volunteers and vendor employees as well as fellow owners and residents. So in 2 places, I would like to include all community volunteers and all vendor employees, because I think there have been instances where vendors have been berated as well. And our volunteers work hard, and I said that in my president's report, and I don't think it's fair that you can't speak to them in a civil, decent manner.
That word.
Yeah, we saw that. And there's other little thing we can do later. I'll take care of it. So I'm making that recommendation. If someone would make that motion, if they so agree.
I so move.
And a second.
And I'll second on the
Okay, and
amendment
then
motion.
any discussion on the addition? Okay, so then I would like to vote on the addition of adding community volunteers and vendor employees to the original document. All in favor of those additions?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, everyone was in favor, so we now go back to the discussion of the policy as amended, or is there any discussion? Further discussion? Okay, then I'd like to add,
I have a question. So the penalty is going to be fines or suspension of common facility use rights? That's what the
well,
penalty will be?
I mean, that is something that can be considered.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so this person comes before the board, or the board decides on this, or?
Well, I think they come before the covenants committee, wouldn't that be?
I don't think in this case they would. I think they would come before the board.
Okay.
It says here, the board is the sole judge of what constitutes
Then it
improper
would-
behavior.
Can't do that in executive session.
So that would
Okay.
be an executive
Okay,
session
I
discussion.
just want to understand what we're
Yeah.
voting on
No,
here.
that's why we're discussing. Yeah, good question. Ron, any comments?
No.
Okay. All right. Then I would like to call the question. All in favor of the resolution as amended, please signify by raising your hand.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay. That policy will be adopted. And this one needs the word "to." You read it too, but it's missing. Okay.
Next item of business is the resolution establishing finding, suspension, and covenants committee. It's a pretty thick document, but what I read earlier, the compliance guideline, my 11 bullet points plus 2 notes, I wrote that based on the policy that you're about to approve.
And this was the collection policy again?
No, it was the compliance policy.
Compliance.
Establishing finding, suspension, covenants.
That's this right here.
Yeah, it's one, it
No,
has
this
6
is right here.
pages
This
to
is
it.
the top page right here.
You're talking the resolution
That is
establishing?
correct.
I have it as 6 pages.
That's correct.
Okay,
And I was just saying, the one pager I read
gotcha.
takes everything in here, and this is in compliance with that.
This it
That's correct, it's
describes
in
this.
compliance with that.
Okay.
Correct.
Do we have a motion to consider the collection policy?
I would say a resolution establishing findings in
Suspension committee.
I so moved.
I don't think we have the actual document before us. It was in the
You-
I
board.
do.
It's in
It's
the
in
board
packet.
It's in your
It's in
board
the board
packet.
I think
pack.
page 13
That's
of,
correct.
page 13 of 183.
That's why I wanted some of these things. In fact, I didn't realize this one. We should have had that one a hard copy too, but,
Is there a motion?
Motion.
I'll
Second.
Okay.
Is there
So
discussion?
Scott-
Is there
Scott moved,
discussion?
and do you want Bill to be the second then?
Is there discussion of this policy?
I'm just going to have one question. Now, the Sandoval collection policy that you had already read,
We're not there
I
yet.
know,
Yep,
that's not there yet.
that's correct. I read both. I read the collection policy and the
So we're just going to,
compliance
and
policy.
then we're going to go to this one.
That's correct.
Very good.
How does this compare to what we've done in the past?
We haven't done it. I haven't done it here yet.
Okay?
So
read
I
through
cannot
it-
tell
I
you-
read through it very carefully, and it delineates how someone goes before the committee. And basically, it's here's what's happened, here, did you do this or did you not do this? This is the violation that we have. And have you corrected it? Yes or no? And so if it has not been corrected, or if they do not have a substantial reasoning for why, asking for additional time for a certain reason, or if there are no other extenuating circumstances, then there's a vote by the violations.
Yep, so first it would come before the board, and the board establishes the fine and the suspension, and that would, I don't want it to be automatic, but it would be a pretty quick routine matter. And then we would let the people know that this is going before a hearing, that we would let the violator know with for the covenants committee. That's where they have the chance to go and plead to the covenants committee. Covenants committee says yes or no. So if the covenants committee says, yep, it's a fine, they have one last alternative to come back to the board and say, give an appeal.
Okay?
So the covenants committee has the ability to override the board and say no?
That is correct.
Okay.
So it's a resident run.
That is correct. And that's the
But they
main
have very,
purpose.
very stringent guidelines
Mhm.
for what's a yes or a no. I mean, if it's
But
gotten to that
everyone
point-
needs protection,
Yeah, they do.
so you're not railroaded into something without some of your fellow residents applying a test to it.
And we've got 7 people on that committee, so basically, they're going to be able to go before 14 reasonable people. And, you would hope that after 14 people, we get the right decision, and I have confidence in that.
And it was real clear that nobody on that committee would be a board member, an employee,
That's correct.
a
No.
committee member.
They're not.
They're going to be totally apart from the organization.
Correct.
And anybody that would be involved in one of these issues would have to recluse themselves from being involved in that. I think should be stated as well.
That's correct.
Any further discussion? Okay, we are talking about the resolution to establish a finding suspense covenants committee. All in favor of that committee, please signify by raising your hand or saying yes.
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 Okay? And Ron says yes as well. Okay, so now that has been approved.
Next item of business, electronic voting. A memo I'm going to read to the board that I sent to the board. As a first step towards approving electronic voting, it is recommended that the board of directors agree to formally pursue electronic voting and select a date for the board meeting where electronic voting is considered. Of note, while this board vote may be held at a regularly scheduled board meeting, 14 days posting notice of the meeting is required. I recommend the board make a motion to pursue electronic voting and place this business on the August 22nd, 2019 board meeting agenda for consideration.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Yes.
What would be the steps after that's approved, Ron?
Before Ron answers,
okay.
I actually have Rob Caves giving me a detailed chronological
Okay.
step-by-step.
I think that's important that we have
absolutely.
that.
Unless, Ron, do you want to add to that? I don't know.
No, I think we would defer to our attorney.
Okay. So this will be legally vetted throughout its inception and throughout its implementation. Is that would be a fair statement, I think.
Molly had a question though, didn't she?
Molly.
Yeah, Marilyn had mentioned to me that she had been speaking to the Board of Elections supervisor for Lee County at a meeting. They just happened to be sitting next to one another. And he has additionally offered to be one of the people bidding to do our election for us. And he would even bring in election machines. So I think that it would be advisable to us to have that individual come in and speak to us and to the community on that option. We heard from Rob Caves as to what his company, what his firm offers, but knowing that you don't get much more secure than you do right now in Florida with election supervisors really cranking down hard on ensuring that elections are run properly, that might be an option, and the cost was going to be extremely reasonable.
Right, so I think that's a great discussion for when we get past the point of formally, right.
But I just wanted to bring that up so that we could be thinking in that direction.
Yep.
I think that is that.
Separate issue.
I think that's right. I think that's a separate issue also, Ron. I think that's dealing with how you handle the balloting, the written ballots that are also required by our bylaws and covenants, and then the electronic is something that's it's an addition to, that's another option. Was that a fair statement?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. So the motion before us is to have a discussion and vote on the next August meeting regarding electronic voting.
That's correct.
Everybody in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand or saying yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, that will be a unanimous consent. The next item is low balances. And that has created some questions in the community.
Jim Swaggart.
And I've had an email from someone asking the very same question that Jim asked, so.
It should say low balances on assessments. Sometimes I get tunnel vision thinking, assume everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? So sorry about that. Low balances on assessments. And my memo to the board says I would like the board to make a motion to waive all delinquent low balances of less than $10. And then I gave some data. First data is there are 71 homeowners with balances of less than $10. 4 of those 71 homeowners have low balances between $5 and $10, and 2 of them have low balances between $1 and $4. 65 of them have low balances of less than $1. So it's
Like
just
2 or 3
cleaning up.
cents, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we have a lot of 2 cents. The total amount of the 71 low balances I'm recommending waive is 41.38, and again, 98% of that are those 6 people. So, you know, it cleans up the books. It makes our efforts. It's just not worth the money sending out letters for late fees on such low balances.
Is this an ongoing process or just a one-time waiver?
It usually is a one-time, but we'll monitor the financials, and anytime it grows, but it could be once a year. Typically, I do it once a year.
Okay.
Yep.
If the board won't pass it, I'll pay them.
Up to what dollar amount?
$41.38.
Well, you can eliminate 3 pages of this by eliminating anyone that's got 1, 2, and 3 cent
It's
balances.
ridiculous, yeah.
You know, I mean, those, I think it's a slam dunk. If you said below $1, I think you'd practically eliminate this. So whether you want $1 or $10 is
I think 10's reasonable.
I do too.
is something that, you know, we just discussed.
So again, the motion I'm looking for is to waive all delinquent low balances of less than $10.
I so move.
Second to the motion? Okay, second to the motion. Discussion of the motion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So moved.
Next item I have is the Somerville Lake Aerator, and just from a historical perspective, at the May board meeting, representatives from Somerville addressed the board of directors regarding the Sandoval had plans to include Somerville's lake aerator maintenance in their budget and to assume responsibility for future maintenance, repair, and replacement. At the February 14, 2019 board meeting, the Lake Committee made a report to the board. Board President Joe Kilrain responded to the Lake Committee report with information on plans for the future approval of a lake aeration project. In his response, Joe Kilrain stated that proposal will include all 17 lakes and will only omit 2 lakes that feed into lakes outside of our property. Joe then said the proposal will include Somerville Lake and the maintenance and repair as per the resolution council is preparing. The lake aeration resolution is prepared by the council is in your board pack. It does not specifically call out Somerville Lake, rather it just states all common area lakes. I spoke to Rob Caves, who's our attorney, who prepared the resolution, and he informed me the resolution's intention relating to the term common area was for Sandoval's Master Association's common area, not Somerville's common area. The February 14, 2029 meeting minutes are in your board pack. There is no mention specific to Somerville's lake related to maintenance or repair or anything. As a recapturing, it was clear to the intent of the board of directors, per Joe Kilrain's statement, that Sandoval will assume repair and maintenance responsibilities of Somerville's lake aeration system. However, there is commitment in the lake aeration resolution. There is no commitment in the lake aeration resolution or in the minutes where the lake aeration project was approved. If the board of directors desires to assume repair and maintenance responsibilities for Somerville's lake aeration system, a board vote will be necessary. However, if there is no such desire, a vote would not be necessary. And so basically what I'm outlining here is there is no legal obligation for our association to maintain, repair, or take over replacement of Somerville's aeration. It's our choice at this point. And this just laid out what I felt was the intent 7 months or 6 months ago or whatever, on February 14th.
So is the way to proceed with this to have a motion or to have a discussion tonight and then have a motion and a vote when the other 2 board members, well, Ron's here, and determine what we need to do?
It's the board's call. You can make a vote now without Marilyn, or if you would like to defer this, I would just not, I wouldn't take a motion at all. If you want to wait, I would defer this business until the next month,
I would prefer to defer.
until August 22nd.
It's a big commitment, and I think all of us need to be able to be here.
Is there some discussion that we want to have about this? I mean, there's something that I've thought about that I would just lay on the table. I asked how old the aerator is that's in the existing lake, and I understand that was a long time ago.
2007,
Right.
with a question mark, so thereabouts. was
So
the answer.
the technology and what's required, the maintenance charge is $400, and I think Somerville's paying $1,000 or something like that currently. Is that correct? $95 a month. So yeah, so $1,000. So I feel that the HOA has committed itself to a lake project. I think that if we assume the responsibility of the Somerville Lake, and it's a technology that was in 2005, that's probably due for replacement. If you looked at the reserve study, I don't think that it's much more than 10 years. If Somerville is willing to pay the price of upgrading their system to the current technology that we're applying to the other lakes, then I think the HOA could consider taking over the maintenance agreement in our maintenance contract. That's a thought that I would like to throw out there. I mean, I think if we accept the responsibility of taking over an aeration system that's already on its last legs, is not sound fiduciary responsibility for a master HOA. And not that I don't think that I'm willing to add that into a maintenance agreement that we would all share the burden. And that's just Don Wells speaking. That's not, I'm not speaking for the board. I'm just giving you some food for thought. Anyone else?
Well, I think as I said, I think it needs to be all of us, and I think we need to have as much, you've presented that amount of information. I think that the Somerville board would need to consider what you have suggested with their board before they may be unwilling to do so, or they may be willing to do that.
Jerry, what did you say the area would be? Was it 6 or 8?
6,000, no more than 6,000.
So that would be Somerville's contribution, and then we would contribute $400
$400 a year,
to
200
maintain it.
semi-annual.
Right, okay.
Looking at the reserve study, they do say useful life of 10 to 15 years, so it is.
I thought
At
I
the-
thought
at
I
the
thought I
end
was
of its
accurate in
useful
in the
life.
comment that I made. So I think it's due for a replacement.
I think that's a reasonable assumption to make, but I do feel that they would need to talk to their membership and see if this type of agreement would even be reasonable for them.
So
They
as a
may or may not.
representative in the audience from Somerville, would that be something that you all would discuss?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to have a discussion.
Oh, of course.
Specifically, but again, I mean, it's an expense we've been paying currently. We've been paying it for 10 years, on our own as it exists today. And our argument thus far has been the fact that we've been paying it for our own benefit, but out of our own pocket for the last 13 years, yet we continue to pay the exact same HOA fee to Sandoval that every other homeowner pays. So it still definitely feels like an injustice to the point that Somerville homeowners are gonna pay the same quarterly assessment as every other homeowner, yet our services are not.
Is that lake visible to anyone except those people living in Somerville? Can I see that when I ride by?
Good, if you rode by, just like I would see lakes if I rode by.
But I'd have to drive into Somerville to see it, whereas I would just driving to the clubhouse, I could see the other lakes.
See it as analogous to the pool.
Yeah.
It's the same as the
See a
pool.
difference, really.
We don't ask you to pay for our pool, because
Then I
different fees altogether.
I don't see it as a different beast. I think it's a lake that's pretty well confined to Somerville visibility, and I would offer to certainly consider the maintenance.
The walls and the roads are a different story
Walls and the roads we
altogether.
all see.
Exactly.
I think my question would be too, on the lake side of it, I would ask our current vendor, who's in the process of getting the project underway, to maybe look at the equipment itself. I know Jim Niehaus and I went out to the box. He has?
He already has.
Okay, so that's what I would need to glean from all of that is to, okay, first and foremost, we know what we're getting with our system. We know the tubing is superior to everything. We know we can get parts for the motor. What they have in their installation, where do we procure parts from? Is our vendor who's going to be doing the maintenance, what's his ability to procure those parts, or are they just germane to the person who's doing the maintenance there?
I
So
can find that out too.
I'd be totally against taking over the existing system that's put in 2005.
yeah, and seeing a total cost. So he might say too, we can't provide a maintenance agreement on those existing motors because we don't, we know they build their motors in their boxes and everything. So they might say, well, the best thing to do besides replacing the tubing and the diffusers is to replace the pump and the housing. So now that 6,000 might turn into 12,000. So until I at least have a better grasp of exactly what we have out there, diffusers, lines, and pump, and their ability to maintain the pump itself or get parts for that on their end, I think we need that information. And I think that'll better answer some of your questions over there in Somerville as to what that pump just might be an anchor, really.
You might feel that way, everybody else might get that information, so I think that's valid, and I'll grab that.
Our lakes are interconnected. Is Somerville connected
Yes.
with
Yes.
ours? It is?
Yeah.
We've paid to clean the pipe and the connections. We paid for that. I just think that, a contribution from Somerville to upgrade their system and then we take over would be Sounds to me like fair both ways. But that's, again, that's me talking.
Why don't we get the answers to all of these questions and revisit this next month or the following month?
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
moved.
if we could make a motion to table this business, that would be appropriate.
I'd like to make a motion, or ask to have a motion be made. Now, tabling is not the terminology. It's to defer that until the next meeting to be brought up as an
Can we
item.
defer to a future meeting, because you may not have all of the...
I think future would be good.
Sure.
But we'll internally plan for next month.
I mean, if do you know where we stand on, once the electric's in, the Vertex putting in the pumps?
I don't.
Okay. Because I think Bose is shooting to have all the electric in by the end of July.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion for that?
Do we have a motion that we'll rediscuss this issue at a future meeting once we have some more information?
To discuss it, so do we
It's
need a
just
motion to defer it?
defer it.
Just defer it.
But do we need a motion to do it, or just, if we
Just
do
do it.
nothing, it is
Well,
deferred?
we didn't make a motion to talk about it.
No, so that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's
We'll
not
add
a-
it, we'll put this on the agenda again.
Fine.
Okay. Any additional items that any committee member would like to,
Not committee member, but
board member?
I would like you guys to consider adding the Sandoval collection policy to this agenda, at least discuss or make a decision. Do you want to add it now and get it approved, or do you want to wait until next month?
I would like to add it now.
I think you might as well consider it.
And I just have one comment on the collection policy, if I may, which is going to be your second page under payment plans. A delinquent owner may request a payment plan to satisfy their outstanding balance. Not saying that any of our residents would do it, but I think we need to put affix a dollar amount to that, because if somebody has an outstanding balance of $10, they may say, I want to go on a payment plan. I think we need to put, in
A minimum
excess.
threshold?
Yeah,
Minimum
minimum threshold, yeah.
Isn't that payment plan supposed to be conducted by the attorney?
Yes. But it should still be in our policy. If there's a threshold, I don't necessarily think it's needed. But I do understand. Hopefully, no one would do that.
I'm saying too, but
Well,
I mean,
I wouldn't think the attorney would approve a plan that,
unless, or direction from us.
I
as
mean,
to-
he has an administrative fee to it.
Well, that's why if someone had a $10 balance, they're not going to pay a $75 administrative fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best way to say it. I think that would take care of your concern, is the attorney's administrative fee to handle that. So,
So the question we have is, can we bring this up for a vote and a discussion tonight?
yes, I'd like, right, so that was a solicitation for additional agenda items. So we've had one.
Okay?
Yes, we now have an additional agenda item.
Is there a motion to bring this up as an additional agenda item and discuss?
I so move.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. We had some already, and duly noted. Is there other discussion?
Yeah. Under suspensions, number one is any owner who is 60 days or greater in delinquency to be sent to the attorney for collections. Number two is any owner who is 90 days or greater in delinquency to be suspended from leasing their home, suspension of vehicle access decal, and suspension of common area cards. Is there a reason we have to wait the 90 days? Can we do that at the 60-day note when it goes to the attorneys?
No, we can. It's state legislated.
Okay, so it has to be 90 days.
That is correct.
Now, is that 90 days from the very first notice that is given by Pope that they are delinquent?
It's 90 days from the first day of the month when it's due. There is a grace period up to 10,
Right.
but the 90 days starts at day one.
Okay, so,
Are we required to continue CenturyLink services?
Say again?
Are we required to continue providing CenturyLink services?
Yeah, so there is a possibility, and I thought about that, but I just don't know all the logistics to that, so I didn't put it in the policy. We can add it anytime we want. So What I recommend is let's get this solid
And
let me-
then make a,
Yeah,
I
get
just
a
didn't know
legal
whether it was-
opinion on that.
Whether it was legal or not.
well,
I've
I
heard that it
know-
wasn't.
I've heard it was, so, but yeah,
Well,
we.
That's why you need a legal
Yeah.
opinion.
That's right.
It's utilities and whether the cable or internet service is considered a full utility or not. That's a gray area, so we would need
Right.
a
That's why I said I'd heard that one way and you've heard another, so that we need a legal opinion to make.
Agree.
before
But
you
that
add
shouldn't preclude us from approving this.
It's not in this.
Right.
Hey, we could set new law.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You wanna, let's go ahead and take your,
Just because it's about leasing, does that mean they have to terminate their lease or they can't start a new lease?
no, they wouldn't have to terminate.
That's what I'm saying.
They cannot start a new.
Start a new lease.
That's correct.
So at least it's more clearer in that statement.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? I'd like to ask a vote on including this collection policy in our other policy, which was,
No, we're doing
Yeah,
right now.
this is a new one. This is strictly
Here.
the Sandoval collection.
defining suspension committee can operate under the policy that we're talking about and the HOA.
So the the covenants committee is a separate
Okay,
issue.
so this is just an administrative policy that
This
for
is
you to utilize.
That is correct. It's a
Okay.
collection policy for. us
Collection
to use.
policy for the HOA,
Correct.
separate and above all others.
Does the 18% interest accrue to the association or to Pope?
Association.
Okay. Any other questions?
Call a vote.
I call the question. All in favor of instituting this policy?
Aye. Yes.
Yes.
Ron?
That's a yes.
That's a yes. Okay. The policy will be implemented. Now, do we have any other business? If not, I recommend an adjournment.
So moved.
Okay.
It's only
Meeting's
quarter to eight.
adjourned.
We have one person on the open forum, Thomas Roberts.
I got 5 things, but they're really easy. That's all, okay. First, I'm gonna say, I'd like you guys to trust one another. If you're going out and doing different things, like a shade thing, that we have to trust you as a board, that I ask you to trust each other, that the guys that, or women that you sent out to do the job, that you believe that they've done the right research for that. Second, and I'm gonna go just as a one-line item with the finance, one of the things that's out of whack, but not by a lot of money, but it's out of whack because of what we thought we were gonna do. And Sean said we were gonna go to IT telephones coming in on a line, and that's why he knew it was gonna be 5,000. Now we're almost 9,500 overspent on that. Was it a bad idea, or did we just not, or did we drop the ball and not make the change? The second thing is, I'm coming to a few meetings, and I'm not sure if I missed any, but I haven't seen any bars. Are we still doing them at these type of meetings?
Can you get one
And-
question at a time so we can respond? Is that okay?
Well, I only get 3 minutes, so
I'll let you.
if you want to
well,
give me more time, I'm
so
fine with
on
it.
the first one on the phone, so that is correct. There was, Carol did a reconciliation during the reforecast process. That was my question. So I asked Carol to do a reconciliation of the phones. We are using voice over IP, and we were paying a bill that was redundant. But based on the decision to go to voice over IP, so we've canceled that. Beginning next month, we will start seeing our savings.
So it'll be the approximate money,
That's
that should be a $5,000 a year.
Correct.
It's the easy way to take
And then the
care of
answer
those
on the
things.
bars is yes, we've committed as a group to continue with bars.
All right, I haven't seen
For
any this
reserve
year.
expenses, we haven't
Yes.
had any.
We haven't had any
Well,
reserve
We're
expenses.
almost halfway through the year. I'm sure there are things that need to be done.
We've been
I
waiting
guess
for
we're
our
gonna have to
reserve
work
study,
those
right.
faster. Okay. How different was this bad debt policy from the previous policy that we had?
Well, I don't understand. Bad debt is something we would budget for a percentage of uncollectible assessments. So you're
I'm
talking
saying
about the collection?
policy itself, how different is it?
It's state legislated, what I said,
Okay.
so I don't know what was
So I'm
applied
just
here.
saying, why does it seem like the number's going up if we already have a policy in effect that was there and is not much difference is what you're
I
telling me?
don't have a working policy, and so this is created.
Okay. Well, I know We did a lot of work last year to bring that way down. We were up high,
I've heard
and I
that.
know
Yeah,
we
Molly
collected
explained
a
it
good
to me.
amount of money. I'm just wondering why we're not continuing the process from last year. Why is it escalating up? Yeah, people don't pay their bill, I understand that. But why is it escalating up? Why isn't the policy?
Well, I think the answer to that is that when the new board took over and Jerry came in new, I think the mechanism for the collections of that was done by two people that are not here now. And we're in the process of now establishing a policy, so that will be taken care of going forward.
Which is the concern I've said before, we're losing
No, we're not.
continuity.
We're now,
'cause
we're now
half
just
the
getting
board-
ready.
Half the board is still here, so they should know that. So when February, March comes and when our delinquency numbers are going up, there should have been something there that you already knew about. That's what's disturbing me on that.
Tom, we did not say that the delinquency numbers are going up. That was assumption on your part. We just set a policy so that it can go from 1 year to the next, to the next, to the next. It is not.
I think I remember it going down to approximately $10,000, and now we're up over 32,000. So that's a tripling of where it was.
I don't know where those numbers
So,
are.
Well, you know, never mind. Okay.
okay, just concerned why it's allowed to take all this time to go back up. Oh, and I don't know what you said earlier, Molly, but I was going to say, maybe ask Bonita Bay who put up the fence. I know you said somebody, I just didn't hear it. So I couldn't hear, so I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for my people out there, we're all in this together, so I shouldn't be the only voice coming up here. You should have questions or something that you feel uncomfortable or comfortable even with, that you please come up. I don't want to do this every time.
We have the
So
next.
please, they don't
Thank
want
you,
to see
Tom.
me every time.
Thank you, Tom.
Jerry Kern.
They don't ever want to see
Jerry
me
Kearns,
every
please.
time, so, and
Jerry's turn now, Tom.
Thanks. I just wanted to leave you guys with a few lasting items as it relates to the lake and aeration discussion that you had earlier. Through my own investigation, I do know that the aerators were installed in 2007, and exactly like the reserve study said, the expected lifespan is about that 10 to 12 years, so we're at, you know, right at that border. But if you look at the overall, kind of to your point, Don, earlier, if you look at the overall site plan of our entire community, and you are exactly correct, the Somerville Lake is pretty much included only within Somerville Loop, but that same scenario exists in multitude of places within our own community. If you look at Ashbury Lake, if you don't drive around Ashbury Lake on that particular street, you're not going to see their lake. There's one between Castleberry and Anguilla, which is pretty much landlocked, and unless you're on one of those residential streets and walking through somebody's backyard, you're not going to see that lake either. So the fact that our lake connects to the larger lake system, to me, that is a Sandoval lake. It should be treated as a Sandoval lake. If that lake did not have an aerator today, would we be considering installing aerators in that particular lake as part of the larger scale aeration process? I think we would be. So the fact that there is an aerator there today that maybe needs to be removed and replaced to be in consistency with the rest of the larger scale plan that we're planning for installation, I don't know that the 172 units of Somerville should be penalized for the fact that we had forethought 10 years ago to install something to make our lakes look and have a healthy maintenance ongoing, that was not done in other lakes within our community. I really feel like for some rhyme or reason there's been a huge distinction that Somerville is its own community and its own little beast. But the reality is, you're right, we are a small microcosm of the larger scale community, and we're really looking to just be treated like the rest of the community. We do have our pool and some other amenities that we pay for, and I agree, we should be paying for those, just like the villas have extra expense, just like homeowners that have lawn care
have an additional expense that they pay for those additional services. You know, we don't necessarily look at our lake as an additional service because most of our homes within this community have a lake. So we think that that lake should be maintained by the master HOA, just like they're planning to maintain all of the other lakes within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Wynn?
Board, how are you doing today? My name's Todd Wynn, and Tom, I ask a lot of questions too. So the question today is, originally on January 5th, I made a post on the forum inquiring about Sean's email and data. A couple board meetings back, and this is the entire board, I asked the question again about the data and the email. So this is going to be a multi-part question, and I'm looking forward to hearing all your answers. How was the missing computer discovered? Sean Wilson's. Who installed the new computer? How long after Sean left did the computer go missing? Did Pope provide data backup? Did we lose significant information? What are you doing about it? And was a police report filed?
Can I answer? One by one?
I got questions.
Ron, do you want to answer that question?
I can answer part of it.
Okay.
I wasn't part of the board at the time the computer was discovered missing. In terms of what we are doing about it, in reaction to the computer going missing, we have sent a number of very detailed questions out to Sean, and we are currently pursuing those answers. And we've been in multiple discussions with Pope on what their next step is, or steps, to make us whole for the missing computer. And in terms of how we are protecting the data going forward, I would have to defer to Jerry on that.
Yep.
So Pope has contacted our attorney, in-house attorney, not Rob Caves, and they have said that they do not recommend going forward because they said the amount you're going to spend on attorney's fees, they're just not getting anywhere. So Sean has answered some of those questions, and he's consistently denied any knowledge of the computer, doesn't know where it's at, and so we can just keep spending money and getting the same answers. So I reported that back to the board about 2 weeks ago or so, and so at this point, no further action from Pope will be taken regarding Sean.
Was a police report filed? Yes, no.
I do not to my knowledge. Yeah, and I would say that, you know, if you're a casual observer, it certainly lends itself, I think everybody's thinking, you know, who may be responsible for this. There is, while there is certainly circumstantial evidence, I think everybody would admit, there's just no proof. I mean, we just don't have anything. We don't have him on video. There's no statements made. There's no eyewitnesses. And so that's what makes it difficult. And I think that's what lended Pope's attorney to just say, I mean, there's just no point at this, you know.
So why wouldn't you?
That our regular tech guy, I did discuss this with our tech guy, and the new computer was not installed by our tech guy. I was told that it was left at Sean's request in his office, nor did the tech guy disassemble the old computer. So that's about what I know factually.
There's very little facts is the issue, but there's a lot of circumstantial.
I might add that the items that we still needed, we've been able to obtain through other means, through emails, through vendors supplying data. And, you know, is the HOA lacking something that's going to affect us all? The answer to that, I think, is no. Has it taken a lot of time and a lot of work to reconstruct? The answer to that is yes. And I think we've all done a yeoman's task to try to do that. And it's one of these things that's very unfortunate, but as far as other than asking for retribution and you want to make sure that you got you know, justice, I don't think there's any way that can go forward. And you know, it's a bad scene, but I think, you know, we've recovered. The HOA is running. We've got the data that we need, and sometimes you just have to let it go.
Do we have a plan in place for doing backups now so
Yes.
that it would not happen again?
Backups like crazy. We have a backup on the computer itself, and there's a cloud with Pope that all these documents are backed up.
So we're
will this
protected from
situation
future-
happen again in the future? The answer to that is no.
Okay.
No, he's not, he can't talk. Okay. Bob.
Bob Higgs. A little confused about a few things. Earlier, Jerry was talking about when he's going over the budget, and if he sees something where we're $10,000 over budget. I'm kind of really curious where that number came from. I find it exorbitantly high for what we're talking about.
Well,
$10,000 on a
disagree.
$3 million budget is not, I mean, for us as individuals, that's a lot of money.
If I finished the year either 10,000 over or under budget, I would be satisfied. You know, that's a very small number on the budget.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm disagreeing with on a monthly basis, if you see it's getting that high,
Yeah,
and you're saying that that's the threshold that you would go to the board,
yeah.
I find that exorbitantly high.
Well, I don't, and I think
I
if
don't
you-
find it high for a yearly figure,
Yeah,
but
so
for
I
a
think if
monthly
you-
figure,
yeah.
yes.
I think if you work with the financials every month or every day like I do, I can have thousands of dollars, 3, 4, 5,000 come vacillate each way within a month very easily. So, I mean, one unexpected
$4,000
expense.
is not 10.
Again, I feel comfortable that I can control the budget within a $10,000, and that's my job, to control the budget to make sure we end up under budget. And I feel like I can control it. Now, if we're talking, and I told Bill this, if we're talking November, December, yeah, my comfort level goes down. It's probably not around 10, maybe it's around 5. But the board will be kept aware at all times. Bill will be kept aware in the finance committee of where we're at on that either positive variance or negative variance. I appreciate your comment, but I feel very comfortable with that number.
We should have some comfort too, perhaps.
If you're working the financials, I agree, but if you're not responsible for it and working them, then you know, I feel very comfortable that I can control within $10,000. Either way, positive or negative.
You also talked about hiring a person or Pope hiring a person. I'm of the opinion or impression that one of the reasons we have Pope is so that Sandoval has no employees.
That's correct.
Why would we want an employee?
Okay, I am a Pope employee. When I hire someone, it's a Pope employee. So if I say I'm hiring someone, it's Pope hiring someone, not Sandoval.
And the 40% that they're going to kick in comes from them?
That's correct.
It's in the contract. It's in the
That's
Pope
actually
contract.
not.
Well, it's in the Pope contract and another
In an
form
hours form.
in providing a service by an extra employee not on site.
So why is it that a company like Pope, who we're putting all of our eggs in Pope's basket, why do they not have people in training if they have so many places that they manage?
We may
I just
hire-
couldn't
yeah.
possibly imagine running a company like that.
Yeah, well, I couldn't imagine having an extra, assistant manager talent just sitting out there waiting for the next opportunity that might not be 6 or 7 months. I wouldn't run a business like that. If you're talking about minimum wage labor and 1,000 employees and your turnover rates are high, I get what you're saying. But in this situation, that would not be practical to have a person just in waiting. That skilled just would not be practical.
For them to place in one of their contract places?
That's correct, because right now, it's 100%. We have no openings. So if we hired someone, they would just be waiting and waiting and waiting until something happened at one of the properties. And that's not practical for a company to do that the size of Pope.
So out of all of Pope's contracts, we're the only ones that are looking for employees?
No, we're the only ones looking for an assistant GM.
Bob, I really appreciate all these questions, but 3 minutes are up, and it's Chris's turn.
I'll explain that to him. Chris, you gonna use that mic?
Either one.
I just wanted to end the evening on a positive note.
Thank you.
And I just feel, I can't say enough about how good I feel personally about how the board is working together and addressing, actually paying attention to what people are concerned about and addressing the issues that you know are going on in the community. And also making the communications has improved phenomenally, and also welcoming input from the homeowners. I think I greatly appreciate that. And just on one other particular thing, I'd like to, in my mind, I think it's been a big help to the community to designate the Trafalgar Gate as residents only. I think it's made a tremendous, freed up, so much easier for residents to get in and out now. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Put your
I'll
name
do
on
it.
our sheet.
I'll do it. What's your name?
My name, Claudia Saenz.
How do you spell your last name, please?
Saenz, S as in Sam, A-E-N-C.
Thank you.
I just wanted
What
to...
neighborhood? I'm sorry, what neighborhood do you live in?
My name is Claudia Saenz. I live in Ashbury Circle.
Ashbury. Thank you.
And just wanted it to end this meeting also on a second positive note. I love to see the community beautiful with the contractors of the landscaper companies that you have. I think it has improved a lot. And on my mind, I think that it would be very good to have them work Monday through Friday, even they work longer hours, and have the Saturday and Sunday, kind of like tranquility to enjoy. But that's only my personal view. And that's all. And everything you have done so far, I'm very happy, and it's good to tell your work how happy we are with these new members. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.